if you guys didn't know already, here we go. Here we go. If you guys didn't know already, you guys are all on here. You guys all have the courage to face rejection every single day. Most people want to do everything they can to avoid rejection in everything that they do, right? So, um, whether it's, asking that person out on a date, or whether it's, making that call you don't want to call, or that call you don't want to make, or whether it's that workout, you don't want to do, because you don't want to feel defeated. People don't want to feel rejected. But everybody on here has the courage to do that. And so, um, just pat yourself on the back. You guys all have the courage to face rejection every single day working in this industry, right? So, we have to pass the test every single day of rejection to know what's inside of us. That's what proves you, your character of like who you are, right? So who do you want to be known as? Do you want to be known as somebody that when, you know, rejection comes, you just close up in a ball and curl away and you're just gone? Or are you going to be the person that faces that rejection over and over again and then conquers that? To be thinking about that throughout your day this week, I'm always thinking about that. Whatever voices you listen to will define you. Make sure you guys are listening to people that breathe life into you, not take it from you. Separate yourself from negative people. Keep people that don't really want the best from you as far away as possible from you, and only listen to the people that have what you want and are going the same direction that you're going. And you're going to feel a lot better. So whatever things you guys are struggling with, just listen to voices that'll define you. Whatever voices you listen to, right? What voices do I listen to? I love to listen to Ed Milet. He's one of my favorite podcasters. He helps me with my mindset all the time. He had a couple good podcasts come out recently. Check them out, Ed Milet. Whether that's going to be even, Sean Mike's trainings on YouTube, whatever it is, whatever voices you listen to is going to define you. So just make sure you're listening to good stuff, putting good stuff in, you're going to get good stuff out. Fear compromises the calling in our lives. So are you living in fear? Are you living in faith? Every single day, try to get closer to living in that faith, because when you do that, fear can't exist where faith lives, right? So every single day, guys, I want you to understand that when you are feeding into that fear every single day, you are actually, number one, you are not becoming the person that you're, I think, supposed to be. And then also, um, you're not able to be to your full potential if you're living in that fear, because I don't know if you guys are religious or not. God does not want you to live in fear. He wants you to have faith. The only person that you should fear is God. Okay. Not some person on the phone that you're just a voice, right? You're just a name and a number and a voice, right? It's not that serious. So then this last verse here, when I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, and God, whose word I praise, and God I trust, I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? What can somebody on the phone do to you guys? They're not going to do anything to you. So just get on the phone and get over it. So now, with that being said, what we're going to talk about today is underwriting. We've been kind of working backwards. We started with building value, then we went to suitability. Now we're doing underwriting, but we have these all. I have all of these I have all these trainings like separated, and we're recording all of them. So we'll be able to actually break these down. You guys will get these in your email. Um, so we're going to be talking about underwriting today. What is underwriting if you're brand new? Underwriting is basically figuring out what product you want to get the client, right? So you've already filled out the suitability sheet. Okay. You've already filled that out. And now you're getting to the point where you're going to do underwriting. This is just figuring out what product is going to be the best, and, what carrier is going to give them the best thing. So it's things to think about in the underwriting. And I keep this main products slide here every single time we do these calls, because I think this is really important. Once you understand these basic things, this is actually going to help you with your underwriting. It's going to, so there's like three, imagine like you do the suitability sheet and there's three roads you can go down, right? Term, whole life, or IULs, right? So understanding these main products right here is going to let you know what road to go down. So so if you're doing it doesn't really matter the lead, doesn't really matter the client, right? When you're on there, if it's for mortgage protection, you want to go term life. Income replacement, they want a bigger benefit, you want to go term life. If somebody's healthy, so you're going through the suitability sheet and they're really healthy, I'm looking at term life or IULs, right? If they're on disability, I'm instantly going to whole life, right? Because I know if they're on disability income, they can't do term or IUL. Okay. So this is going to help you while you're doing your suitability sheet, figure out which road you want to go down. All right. If they've got criminal or drug history 11 years ago, I'm going, okay, cool. They're still going to be good. They have a history, but it's fine because they can still do term or IUL, because the look back period is only 10 years for that. Okay, I'm gonna teach you guys how to go over the underwriting guides and how to do that here in a minute if you guys don't know. Um, and so, a couple more things on here. Term life ages 18 to 70. If I'm talking with a 77-year-old, I'm not going to be talking about term, right? I don't care how healthy they are. I don't care that they have all the money in the world. They can't, they're not going to get it, right? So that way, when I'm talking about suitability, um, I'm not going to be talking about term like from the get. Like I'm not going to put that in their mind. I'm going to be trying to talk about whole life, right from the get. I'm going to find reasons why whole life makes sense for them. Okay. So what do we do for final expenses? Burial, cremation, obviously, ages are 40 to 89. Accepts more medical conditions, it gains cash value, right? If you guys don't already know. And then IULs, designed to be permanent. They're the same underwriting as term. So that makes it really easy. 0 to 55. So if their age is 0 to 55, you can look at an IUL for cash value or retirement. If they're 55 or older, 55 to 75, we're going to be talking about just basically cheaper permanent death benefit, because they're not really going to have, the cost of insurance is going to be pretty high. And so when the cost of insurance is high after the age of 55, the retirement portion it's not as sexy, because a lot of the money they're putting into it is getting eaten up by the death benefit, if that makes sense. So, but what is really good about an IUL for somebody who's over 55 that's healthy is that we could be looking at a um, talking about whole life, but it's permanent and it's cheaper than a whole life traditionally, right? So that's something to keep in mind. That's the way that I sell that. Okay, so this is the virtual client suitability sheet. If you guys don't already have it, I use a little different one, but it's just the same one I've used for years. So, but this one's actually better because it has all the stuff. All you guys have to do is literally just read off the actual medical conditions. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys a virtual suitability. We're gonna go through the whole thing, but I want to talk about a couple things before that. There's just two main objectives. Okay, people want to make this super complicated. It's so simple. Um, the first thing I'm trying to do is which carrier, because we're talking about final expense a lot, right? Most of us aren't going to get final expense. Which carrier is going to get them day one coverage? That's the first thing I want, because not only is it better for the client, to get them that day one coverage, it's easier to sell. It's easier to get them to understand the value and build the value on day one coverage. It's a lot easier than having to wait the 2 years and explain the graded period. Now, some people are going to only be able to be qualified for the graded period, which is fine, right? But we can, if we do a good job underwriting, a lot of times if they're already, someone might put them in a graded option, or they might be in a graded option, but you can put them in a day one coverage. That way you're actually helping the client, you're giving them value, and you're actually putting them in a better spot. So what carrier is going to get them day one coverage? Okay. And then number two, which carrier will give them the best deal / most value? Okay. It's going to be easier to sell. You guys want to put it in a way where it's going to be really easy for the client to say yes. So if we can get a client, the best thing for their health, it's just going to be easier for them to say yes. It's easier for you to make the sale. Okay, so that's the main two things I'm thinking about when I finish the suitability sheet. Okay, what carrier is going to get them day one coverage, and then out of those carriers that'll give them day one coverage, which one's going to give them the best deal or the most value? Okay, so those are the two things I want you guys to be thinking about. All right. So far, before I kind of get into the other stuff, does anybody have any questions on anything? I know I'm going kind of fast here, but just all right, let me check the chat here. Don't talk with yeah, 100%. Okay, cool. Does anybody have any other questions before I move on? Because I'm gonna. Okay, cool. We'll go right ahead then. All right, so order of operations. So, and I'm going to go through this with you guys here. So this is your order of operations when you're doing suitability. Okay, so when I finish the suitability, we're going to compare their conditions to the underwriting guides. It's the first thing you're going to do. Sometimes it's all you have to do, and you won't have to do step 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do, compare conditions to underwriting guides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a suitability sheet here. This is the one that I use. I know my handwriting is absolutely terrible, but this is the one that I use here. Okay, so this was a client. This is just the last client that I helped on Saturday. So Trishea, right? I'll read it for you guys so you guys can understand. So she's on disability. Okay, we go to occupation. She's on disability. She's 58. Okay. Instantly, she's on disability. What do we do, guys? Tell me what we're not going to sell them. Somebody say it.
Term or IUL.
Term IUL. Yep, exactly. So we're not going to sell her term or IUL already. And you're going to get that occupation really early on. So it's like instantly you guys are thinking whole life. Okay. Now you're in whole life mode. Now you're thinking, okay, what carriers whole life am I going to get them? That's what you should be thinking right here. Okay. And you're going to know that 10 seconds into this, right? So that's how early on you can go down that path and start to figure out what you want to do. Okay. Now the monthly income, 968 a month. She's not making too much money. So when I'm going to show the options, I know this isn't a training on that, but I'm going to be thinking a lot lower prices. Okay. So now we come down to the bottom to the medications here. Okay. She's a smoker. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about common things. Actually, I'm going to refer back to here. And we're going to talk about this carrier perks page right here. Number 2, the smoker and they want whole life or they're eligible for whole life. We're going to go Americo Eagle. Why? They have the 3-year non-smoker rating. So they're going to get a non-smoker rating from Americo when everybody else is going to get them a smoker rating. What did we talk about earlier? Which carrier is going to give them the best deal or the most value? What's going to be the easiest to sell? So for this client that we're talking about right here, she's a smoker. And so I'm thinking Americo because they're going to give her the cheapest rates, non-smoker, going to beat everybody else. As long as she actually wants to quit smoking, it could be a really good fit for the client. You're going to build up a lot of value for her and it's going to beat out everything else. Any other company that tries to call her and sell her something, they're not going to beat it, right? So now medications here. So she's only taking amlodipine and atenolol, and she had a heart murmur. Okay. So I went through all the medical conditions, heart attack, stroke, cancer, all that stuff. I got her height and weight, 4'11", 135. Okay. And then coming down here, I just got her beneficiaries information stuff. Okay. So now at the end of this, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do. We're going to go back to the order of operations. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look on the actual underwriting guide. Okay. So she's taking amlodipine and atenolol. She has a heart murmur. Okay, cool. So let's go to the files here and let's go to the FX grid sheet. This is the one I use. It's an older one, but it has everything on here. I like it because it has Transamerica on there and I like Transamerica for certain stuff. So we're going to come down here. We are going to go to, well, high blood pressure is not going to be on here. So high blood pressure is not going to be an issue for folks that are getting whole life. Okay. The real thing that we're looking for is the heart murmur, which is basically going to be AFib. Okay. So if you look here, arrhythmia, okay, AFib, we're going to look at all these different grid sheets. So I'm going to go over this. So Mutual of Omaha, the first one here, Living Promise. If she had it in the last year, it's a decline. If she had it in the last 2 years, it's graded. So it's like Moo's not even going to touch her, period. So Moo's out of the question. Okay. Americo Eagle Premier. It's not asked. It's allowed. Perfect. Okay, that's what I'm thinking when I'm filling it out because she's a smoker, right? Prosperity, we don't use them anymore. American Amicable, not asked. It's allowed. Okay, cool. That's a great backup option. Foresters, we don't really use them anymore. But you have them there if you need. Some of you guys do. If you don't have Foresters, you can get it. Honestly, you don't need it though. We got a lot of other better carriers, to be honest with you. And then treated within 2 years is standard. So Transamerica would do standard, but they're going to do a smoker rating. It's going to be more expensive, right? And I wouldn't go Transamerica. I would go American Amicable before I go Transamerica, just based on comp. Okay, so all right, so just looking at this now, and then if you really want to look, okay, we can go to Aetna. Aetna's grid sheet here. If you guys don't have these grid sheets, I can give you them. I'll include them in the email. AFib, okay, and then you can see Aetna Sendo's this one right here, this middle, the second one in. It's not asked, it's allowed. Okay, so boom. All right, cool. So I went here and we got she got a heart murmur. She went that. She's a smoker. So what do? We're gonna go Americo. That's exactly what I did with this client. I sold her a $38 a month policy, right? Nothing too crazy, but she's only making $968. But it was really important to her. I figured out that her son, she had 5 sons. One of her sons passed away like a couple months ago, and she was like dealing with all this stuff, and she's like, I got to make sure my kids don't deal with this, right? So that's why we ended up here. Also, you always want to check the height and weight. Okay. So if you go down here, if you scroll to the bottom of the sheet, you're going to be able to see the height and weight. Okay. So she's what, 4'11, 135. If we take a look here at the Americo underwriting chart, she's 4'11. The minimum she can be is 87 pounds. The most she can be is 210. She's perfectly good on the build chart, and we're good to go, right? So that's what I'm thinking when I'm looking at the suitability sheet for the client, right? So we'll go down over here. Okay. So we're gonna do a couple more. Do you guys have any questions on that? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Cool. All right, good. Sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll do another one because that one was pretty easy, but like that one was perfect. Actually, we're gonna talk about this first. Then I'm gonna go back to we'll do another example. Okay. So okay, let's actually go down this. Okay, order of operations. Let's find another one. Let's find a more difficult one. Let's see here. Let me go to my actual clients here. Let's look. Okay, what's this one look like? Okay, this is a pretty good one. Okay, Miss Donna Wheeler. Okay, she's 61. She's on retirement and Social Security. Okay, so she's not on disability. Okay, so I'm like, okay, she can maybe do an IUL, right? Come down here. She's non-smoker. That helps. Looks good. Okay, first thing that I figure out here: asthma, COPD, right? So she has COPD. What does that mean? Okay, so now what are you guys gonna do? The first thing. Can somebody tell me first thing from the order of operations? What are we gonna do? I know you guys know it. I'm not gonna move on. Somebody's gotta tell me.
Ask what year was diagnosed.
Well,
I was
that's
gonna
true.
call Danny out. I was like, Danny knows.
Well, yeah, you want to figure out when it was diagnosed for sure. But once you know it's COPD, right? So okay. Actually, I made that question too complicated. Okay, yeah. So we know it's COPD. We know how long ago it was. She was still on it. So I didn't. She's still taking the medication. So I was like, she still had the inhaler. So I was like, all right, we're good. All right. So and then I went through propanolol for tremors. She's taking heartburn medication, citralopram, whatever. That's for depression, and then Victoza was for weight loss. I think that's also a diabetes medication. Okay, so instantly I'm going, okay, whole life. That's what we're thinking here. Okay, so what are we going to do? First thing, compare conditions to the underwriting guides. So we're going to go to the underwriting guide for Aetna. Okay, we're going to go down to COPD. All right, so COPD, Americo has it says guaranteed issue. Guaranteed issue is a bad thing. In Washington, we don't even have guaranteed issue. If you're working in another state, Americo might have guaranteed issue. It's basically like a 3-year wait period. It's like the worst. Like AIG is better than this, guys, and the comp is like 15%. Like this is a horrible product. You don't want your clients to have it. Okay, so we're not going to Americo. Aetna does standard. Now, if you guys don't know, Aetna has 3 tiers. Okay, preferred, standard, and modified. Modified is a graded product like AIG, GIWL. Standard is a immediate coverage. Okay, and then preferred is an immediate coverage, but it's just cheaper. So standard. So okay, cool. She can get immediate coverage with Aetna. Prosperity we don't use, but it's graded anyways. Senior choice is return a premium within the first 2 years. Return a premium means 2-year wait period. They'll return the premiums they pay into it for the first 2 years. If it was just within 3 years, it was graded. If it's more than 3 years, then it's immediate. And I'm glad you said what you did, Pivo, because now let's say she used to have COPD, but she hasn't filled that prescription for that inhaler. Let's say it's been like 8 years, right? I wouldn't do it if it was like 4 or 5 years. I mean, you can try, but like let's say it was 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago. She's like, I don't even use that medication anymore for COPD. I don't really have COPD anymore. I just used it for a little bit. I'm better now. I lost weight, whatever it is. You could maybe look at doing an immediate coverage with AMM. I actually just recently learned about this with AMM. So that's why it's always important to ask, hey, how long ago was this diagnosed? When did you start taking medications? And then if you're not taking them anymore, when did you stop taking those medications? Because what they're going to see on the medical, like the MIB report, is they're going to see when the last time they filled that prescription. And then that's the date they're going to go off of. Okay. So if it's more than 3 years ago, we could have went AMAM. Forrester's is standard. Forrester's plan rights. We're not even going to talk about that product. We don't really use it. And then Mutual of Omaha Living Promise is graded. So it's got the 2-year wait period. Okay. Cool. So looking at this, just taking a look at this, I mean, it's either going to be Aetna or Forrester, but we don't even really use Forrester's because we don't really need it. And Aetna is going to be the way to go. Okay. Now, what I would also recommend you guys do is Google the medications if you're not sure. So if it's propranolol or whatever it is, right? Let's say it's propranolol. Okay. That was the other medication. So it can treat high blood pressure, chest pain, uneven heartbeat. So it can treat AFib, right? So that's the second thing in the order of operations, right? You're going to Google the medications if you're not sure. So if I see a medication I haven't seen before, or I don't know 100% what it is, I'm going to Google it. This is going to save you guys a lot of time, because if you don't Google the medication and you figure out that, oh, well, if you look at the propranolol or whatever it's called, where is it? Here we go. It also treats AFib. So if we go to Aetna and they don't take AFib, well, then we might have to go to a graded product, right? Because we can't do it. But you can see here, it also can treat tremors, and that's what she told me she was taking it for. Okay. So, and then this is also an important note. If you guys are taking notes here, a lot of times there is something called dual use medications. That's what this guy is right here. This propranolol is a dual use medication. So it can be used for tremors and it can be used for AFib. It can also be used for chest pain, and it can be used for high blood pressure. So you can use this medication for a lot of stuff. So some carriers look at it differently, but what I like about Aetna is at the end, they might ask you, hey, has she been treated with AFib? Has she been treated with chest pain? Right at the end of the application. Also, American Amicable does that too. So Aetna and AMAM, they'll ask you additional questions for those dual use medications at the end of the application. Because she told me it's for tremors, we can say no on the application. Nope, it wasn't for chest pain. It wasn't for AFib. Cool. And they'll usually will push it through and approve it for those dual use medications. So definitely want to double check on that. All right. So Google the medications if you're not sure. And then if you're still not sure, you're like, I don't know exactly what to do, just call your manager. Just call your manager if you don't know. Once you guys do 100 appointments, you guys are going to see all the same medications, and you're going to learn, 80-90% of the time you'll be able to know what to do. But sometimes there's even stuff, like, even for me, like I might have to, the last thing here, call and do a risk assessment if you're still not sure. So you can also call the carrier, hey, she's taking propranolol. Okay, she's been diagnosed. She's taking it for tremors. She also has COPD. Would she be eligible for the standard product? Here's her height and weight, or whatever it is, right? And then that's always going to be your last ditch effort. If you can't get a hold of your manager, you're unsure about the medication, the underwriting guides aren't super clear. Okay, so that's what you guys are going to do to always figure out what to carrier to go with. All right, so now for this one, what I would do, okay, propranolol can be used for AFib. Let's go up here to AFib. Here it is, AFib down here, not asked, it's allowed. Okay, cool. Either way, it's fine. So I'm going to probably push that one through because she told me she didn't have any chest pain. Okay. So, and then you can see angina, chest pain right here, treated within 1 year, modified. But she told me, she said, hey, it's not for chest pain, right? So if that's the case, we can click no if it does pop up that additional question with Aetna at the end. Okay. So that is going to be for this guy here. And then also Victoza, you can check that for weight loss. You can check that, you can Google the citalopram or whatever it is, and just, you can see it's depression, right? And then Victoza is for diabetes, no complications with that. So she should be totally good. Yeah. And so that's going to be the example of what I would do. Now, last thing I wanted to touch on with you guys is the carrier perks. There's more than this, but these are kind of all the ones that I could think of, off the top of my head. I would screenshot this, or I would definitely want to like have this somewhere, because it's going to save you guys a lot of time. So number one, Aetna has no height or weight charts. So if I sit down with somebody and they're 5'2", 350 pounds, nobody's going to give them immediate coverage, right? I've had a client before. She was like 400 and like something pounds, right? Which is crazy. But what's really crazy is Aetna approved her preferred because she actually didn't even have any real like health problems. She had like diabetes, high blood pressure. She was just super overweight. But Aetna actually approved her preferred, right? Which is insane. All the other carriers like they wouldn't even accept them, right? So if you have somebody that's really, and it works the other way too. If they're really really skinny, right, and tall, there's no height or weight charts with Aetna. So I always keep Aetna as my, hey, they're super overweight. You know, make sure you guys are always checking the height and weight charts. Aetna's always good to go for that. Like we talked about earlier, smoker, but they want whole life Americo Eagle. It's going to be the cheapest out of everybody. It's going to be the easiest to sell. Number three, the cheapest whole life right now is Mutual of Omaha Living Promise. Now, what comes with that is stricter underwriting, right? Both those cases we just looked at wouldn't have been approved day one coverage with Mutual of Omaha, right? So it's stricter underwriting, but it's going to be cheaper price. So if you're trying to beat a price, somebody else already has coverage. Mutual of Omaha is a really good one to go to because they're going to be the cheapest as of right now. Little bit of information we have moving forward. Americo will be coming out with a product that is just like Living Promise. I think it's going to be a little bit stricter underwriting, just like Mutual of Omaha, but it's with Americo. They're going to do like a tiered thing like Aetna has. So that should be coming out, hopefully here in the next few months. And then also Moo Graded is an extremely cheap option for graded. So if they're really on a budget, Moo Graded is really good because it's super, super cheap. It only goes to 20,000, but like you can get COPD, right? You want to get day one coverage, right? With Aetna, with COPD. But if it's just a budget thing for them and they don't care about the 2 year wait period, Moo Graded is like insanely cheap. So if I'm going to go graded and it's a price thing, Moo Graded is a good way to like, get that policy in there for somebody on a budget. Number four, AIG SIWL can accept current cancer if only stage one and certain types of cancer. So you guys check out the underwriting guide. It'll tell you what types of cancers it takes and it doesn't take. You guys can check that out. But I've gotten day one coverage for people with breast cancer, right? So that's huge. No other company is going to do that. Diabetic complications for Transamerica and AIG SIWL. They are the only, as of right now, that I know of immediate coverage options that we have. So what that means is if they have diabetes and neuropathy or diabetes and like a kidney disease, right? Diabetes and retinopathy, whatever their eyes, okay? Diabetic complications, Transamerica, AIG, SIWL. It's always who I'm going to. They're going to give you day one coverage, okay? Number six, they're not a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, but a legal resident. You can go Aetna, okay? Now, if they're not a legal resident, they're not even a legal resident. They're not a U.S. citizen. They're not a permanent resident, but have a social. You can go American Amicable. Okay. Now, if they don't have anything like that, I'm pretty sure you can go Transamerica. I haven't wrote a policy like that before. I know Diego has. I'm pretty sure he has at least. So if they don't have anything, but they're here, they have like a visa or something like that, I'm pretty sure you can go Transamerica. So that's that, guys. We are pretty much right on time here. I'm gonna come back on here. Do you guys, let me check the chat here. I10MM, yep. Do you guys have any questions on anything we talked about so far?
Can I recap, Tyler, just to make sure I got it right?
Mhm.
Not too close. So if they completely healthy, we go with term or IUL.
Yes,
If there's something going on, then we think about whole.
yes,
And from there on, then we look at the underwriting guide to see what company will be better depending on what they have going on.
exactly.
Cool.
And then always think about what's going to be the easiest to sell, right? To me, an IUL is easier to sell than a term. So I'll pitch an IUL before I pitch a term. So yeah.
So
So if they're healthy,
what about if a customer say they can only put 100 towards the IUL, and then like originally they wanted 100,000, but 100 only adds up to like 50, I think. So
Yeah.
would it be a better option to put them in a hole if the IUL is not gonna provide everything they're looking for or they need? I don't know.
So that's a good question. So IUL is going to be, you're going to get more for your money than a traditional whole life. Okay. So if they're healthy, I'm always going IUL. If they're healthy, Nyla, what I do every single time, if they're healthy and they want something permanent, they don't need like a huge coverage, I'm always going Mutual of Omaha IULE. I love the product. The company is really good. It's really easy to sell. It's really fast. The underwriting's pretty good. So I always go with them, but you can go America IUL, you can go Ethos IUL. I'll go IUL before I go whole life if they're healthy enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about
And then
somebody that has asthma? Like
it
that's
de-
a medical condition.
so what I would do is I'd go to the underwriting guide. So asthma, is it chronic asthma or is it just albuterol? Because if it's just albuterol, they're good. But if they take like a Symbicort or they're taking a Trilogy or they have other inhalers, that could
Okay.
be treated for COPD. So if you Google the medication, you'll see what other things that those things are treated for, and then that'll kind of point you in the direction you need to go.
Okay.
Hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, for sure. That's a good question. All right, guys. Um, Anybody else got any other questions on anything? Hopefully this was helpful.
No, I appreciate you, T. If anything, I wanted to add for any of us that are Spanish and selling people ITIN numbers, you go am, guys. So just so you know, like what he was saying there, non-resident don't have a social. They do need to have an ITIN, just so you know, and then you go in there. And if not, then we're gonna not be able to help them at all. But they need like an ITIN number.
Is an I-10 the tax ID?
The ITIN number is their tax ID, so they need that. Now, some of them have fake socials. You can try to run it as a permanent resident, but like you need numbers, need something. Outside of that, dude, appreciate you, T. That was super valuable. Let's get it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Cool. A couple of us are gonna sit on here. We're gonna talk about our goals and stuff for the next 30 days or so. So if you guys want to sit on here, talk about goals, that's totally good. If not, appreciate you guys all on here. So